I watched the speech once. The night after the wedding. I was still in my hotel room, still wearing the dress I bought specifically because Rachel said it would photograph well. She stood at the podium and talked about me for 7 minutes. She said I taught her how to be brave. She said I was her biggest inspiration.
She cried.
The whole room cried. I cried. 3 days later, I called her to say I made it home safe. She did not answer. That was 6 years ago. She has not called back. But the speech is still on YouTube. 147,000 views.
People comment on it all the time.
Sisters are the best. This made me cry. I wish I had a relationship like this. I have never commented. I have nothing to say to strangers about a speech that was never for me.
It is 2 in the morning.
I cannot sleep. I open YouTube. Her wedding video is in my recommended feed. 6 years later. Still there. Still watched. I look at the thumbnail. Rachel's face, mid-laugh, bouquet in her hand. I know exactly where the speech is in the video. Minute 14. I have watched it once. I close the laptop. I do not click play. I do not need to hear the words again. I remember them perfectly. I also remember the 3 days after the wedding. And the 6 years since. The speech is still beautiful. The silence is still loud. And I have stopped believing that one makes up for the other. My name is Lauren. I am 41. My sister Rachel is 4 years younger. She works in nonprofit fundraising. She gives excellent speeches and makes terrible phone calls. That has always been true. I just did not know the two things were connected until the wedding. I flew across the country for her wedding weekend. I helped with seating charts the night before. I held her veil while she put on her earrings. I did all the things sisters do when they are close enough to be asked and polite enough to say yes. The speech happened during the reception. I did not know she was going to say any of it. No warning. No heads up. Just 7 minutes of public vulnerability. She stood at the podium and talked about me like I was a character in a story she had been saving for a sold-out crowd. After the speech, people hugged me all night. You must be so close. What a beautiful bond. She really looks up to you. I smiled and said thank you. I did not know what else to say. I found Rachel later, near the dessert table, champagne in her hand, still glowing. That speech.
I didn't know you felt that way.
She hugged me.
Of course I feel that way.
You're my sister. You never said any of that before. She pulled back, still smiling. I'm saying it now. That's what matters. I did not ask why she had never said those things in private. I did not ask why it took a podium and an audience for her to call me an inspiration. I accepted the speech as a gift. A gift I did not ask for. A gift I could not return. A gift that weighed more than any gift I had ever received. I would learn later that gifts you cannot return are sometimes the heaviest things you carry. I flew home the next day. I called her 3 days later to say I made it safe. She did not answer. That was the last time I tried. The speech stayed on YouTube. The silence stayed in my phone. And I spent 6 years trying to figure out which one was real. I flew home on Sunday. I texted Rachel. Made it back safe. What a weekend. I love you. She responded with a heart emoji. Nothing else. No words. Just a small pink heart floating in my messages. I told myself she was exhausted. The wedding, the honeymoon planning, the thank you notes, the chaos of being newly married. I gave her space. That was what good sisters did. They understood. They did not push. 3 days later, I called. She did not answer. I left a voicemail. Just wanted to hear your voice. Call me when you have a minute. She did not call back. A week passed. I called my mother. Have you talked to Rachel? She's so busy. You know how it is after a wedding. She didn't call me back. She'll call. She loves you. Did you hear the speech? I was there. The speech. Everyone is still talking about it. She really looks up to you. I did not tell my mother that a speech is not a phone call. That applause is not conversation. That being someone's biggest inspiration, apparently, does not require actually speaking to them. I kept those observations to myself. They felt too heavy for conversation about a wedding. My mother meant well. She was the family's official optimist. She believed silence was just busyness and busyness was not a statement. I wanted to believe that too. But I had been busy before. I had been overwhelmed before. I had still called people back. I had still said I love you with my voice instead of a small pink heart. I waited. 1 week. 2 weeks. A month. I watched Rachel post photos of her honeymoon. I watched her thank friends for wedding gifts. I watched her comment on other people's posts, laughing, joking, being present. Just not with me. I did not know how long you were supposed to wait for someone who called you their inspiration. I did not know at what point you realized that inspiration did not require your presence. That you could be someone's story without being someone's life. I was still waiting. But I was starting to wonder what I was waiting for. A month passed. I called Rachel twice more. No answer. No call back. The voicemail stacked up in her phone like unread messages. I would never know if she heard. I stopped leaving them after the third one. There is only so many times you can say, "Just wanted to hear your voice," before the silence starts to sound like its own answer. Ben asked me about it one night. We were sitting on the couch. He had never met Rachel in person. He had heard every voicemail go unreturned. He had watched me stare at my phone. Has she ever done this before? I thought about it. The pattern of Rachel being busy. Rachel meaning to call. Rachel loving her sister, but just not being good at staying in touch. The excuses changed over the years. The outcome never did. Yes, I said. But it never felt like this. If she didn't give that speech, if she just didn't call you for 6 months, would it hurt this much? I considered the question.
No.
It would just be my sister being flaky. So the speech changed things. The speech made promises she never intended to keep. And I'm the only one who remembers the promises. Ben nodded. He did not tell me to confront Rachel. He did not tell me to call her again or let it go, or anything in between. He just helped me see something I had been avoiding. The speech was not a gift.
It was a contract.
Rachel had stood in front of 147,000 people and said I was her biggest inspiration. She had cried. She had meant it. I believed that. But meaning it at a podium is not the same as meaning it on a Tuesday. She had signed the contract with tears and champagne. Then she had ignored every single clause. I did not know what I owed someone who performed love, but did not practice it. I did not know if I owed her anything at all. I just knew that watching her speech on YouTube felt like watching a stranger promise something my sister never could. And I was tired of being the only one who noticed the difference. 6 months after the wedding, I stopped calling. I decided to wait and see how long it took Rachel to notice. She did not. She posted on Instagram regularly. Photos of the honeymoon. Date nights. Her new puppy.
She did not post about me.
I was not surprised. I was just tired. 1 year after the wedding. My birthday. Rachel posted a photo of us from 5 years ago. We were at a restaurant. I did not remember which one. She looked happy. I looked tired. The caption said, "Happy birthday to my favorite sister. Love you always." She did not call. She did not text. She posted. My mother called me that afternoon. Rachel said she called you for your birthday. Didn't you get the call? I stared at the wall. She didn't call, Mom. She posted a photo. That's basically the same thing. She was thinking of you. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that thinking is not calling. That posting is not speaking. That a caption is not a conversation. But I did not. I said, "You're right. She was thinking of me." I saved the rest for Ben. He already knew. The YouTube comments kept coming. 147,000 views. Strangers weeping over a sisterhood that did not exist. I wish I had a relationship like this. Sisters are the best. This made me cry. I read them sometimes. They felt like gaslighting from people who were not there. People who had never waited for a phone that did not ring. People who had never watched their sister post a photo instead of dialing a number. People who believed a speech was the same as a life. I did not know how to grieve a relationship that existed publicly, but not privately. The speech was real. The tears were real. The caption was real. But the silence was also real. And the silence was winning. I did not know how to explain that to someone who had only seen the speech. I did not know how to explain it to myself. I just knew that 147,000 strangers believed they knew my sister. And I was not sure I did anymore. 2 years after the wedding, I watched the speech. The one time. I watched it alone at night on my laptop. I do not know what made me do it. Maybe I needed to remember. Maybe I needed to see if it was as beautiful as I remembered. It was. That was the problem. I noticed things I had not noticed at the wedding. Rachel's eyes scanning the audience. Rachel's voice pitching up for laughs. Rachel's hands gesturing toward my table, but never pointing directly at me. She was performing, not lying. Performing. There is a difference.
She meant what she said.
She just meant it for the room, not for me. Ben came to bed and found me staring at the screen. She didn't say anything true in that speech, I said. She said things that sounded true. There's a difference. What do you mean? She said I taught her how to be brave. But she's never once called me when she was scared. She said I was her biggest inspiration. But she's never asked me a single question about my life. The words are beautiful. The actions are not there. Ben was quiet for a moment. Do you want to call her and tell her this? I closed the laptop.
No.
I had learned that you cannot confront a performance. Performers do not hear criticism. They just adjust the script. Anything I said would become part of Rachel's next performance. My sister and I had a difficult conversation, but we're working through it. I refused to be a character in her ongoing one-woman show. I did not call her. I did not text. I did not post anything that could be interpreted as a response. I stepped out of the performance entirely. Rachel did not notice for another year. That was the part that hurt the most. Not that she ignored me. That she did not even realize I had stopped performing. I did not know if it was possible to love someone and also refuse to perform for them. I did not know what happened when one person stopped performing while the other kept delivering speeches. I just knew that watching Rachel's hands gesture toward my table without pointing at me had told me something I had been avoiding. I was not her sister. I was her evidence. And I was tired of being proof of something that was not true. 3 years after the wedding, I stopped checking Rachel's social media. I did not announce this. I just stopped.
There was no ceremony.
No decision. Just a gradual realization that I did not need to know what she was eating for brunch or what her puppy looked like from a different angle. Her life was visible. I was just not in it. Looking at the evidence did not change that. Rachel's birthday came. I did not post. I sent a text. Happy birthday. Hope you have a great day. She responded. Thanks, sis, 2 hearts. I stared at the heart emoji.
She still called me sis in writing.
Never in voice. The word had become a text artifact, like LOL or OMG. A sound she no longer made.
Ben asked me about it that night.
Does she even know there's a problem? I thought about it. I don't think she knows there's a relationship. I think she knows there's a script. And she's been following it. The script says, post on birthdays. Send emojis. Call your sister your biggest inspiration at your wedding. The script does not say, call when you're sad. Call when you're happy. Call just to hear her voice. The script is fine. The relationship is not. I did not send Rachel the script I had written. I did not ask her to call. I had learned that asking someone to care about you is not the same as them caring. And I was tired of asking. The relationship now existed entirely in text, emojis, captions, the occasional heart react. There had not been a voice call in 3 years. 3 years since I had heard my sister say my name. 3 years since I had heard her laugh. 3 years since I had known whether her voice still sounded the same. I did not know what to do with that. The person who called me her biggest inspiration treated me like a footnote in her real life. And her real life did not include me. I was not angry anymore. I was not sad anymore. I was just confused. How could someone say those words and mean them and still not pick up the phone? I did not have an answer. I was not sure there was one. I was just sure that emojis were not a relationship. And I was done pretending they were. I'm over at where silence ends. Subscribe if any of this sounds familiar. 6 years after the wedding, my father went into the hospital. Routine surgery. Not an emergency, but serious enough that family should know. I called Rachel, not to test her, because someone had to tell her. She answered. The first voice call in 6 years. What's wrong? Dad's having surgery. He's fine. But I thought you should know. She was quiet for a moment. Why didn't anyone call me sooner? No one knew you wanted to be called. You haven't answered in 6 years. That's not fair. You could have tried harder. I looked out my kitchen window. I tried for 3 years. Then I stopped. You didn't notice. Long pause. Then, is this about the speech? It's about 6 years of silence, while a video of you calling me your inspiration got 147,000 views. Her voice cracked. Crying maybe. I could not tell anymore. 6 years of trying to distinguish between Rachel's performances and Rachel's feelings. I had given up. Dad's surgery is Tuesday, I said. I'll text you the details. I love you. I know. I did not say it back. Not because I did not love her. Because I no longer knew what I love you meant when it came from someone who could not answer a phone. I did not mention the speech again. I did not mention YouTube. I did not mention the strangers who believed in a sisterhood that did not exist. I told her about the surgery. I hung up. I had said everything I needed to say 6 years ago. I was just saying it now to someone who was finally listening, or at least pretending to. I did not know if she would show up for our father's surgery. I did not know if she would perform concern from a distance and call that presence. I just knew I was done being the one who carried the weight of a relationship she had already let go. The speech was still on YouTube. 147,000 views. I had watched it once. I would never watch it again. I did not need to. I had lived the sequel. And the sequel was just silence. Rachel did not come to the hospital. She sent flowers. The card said, "Wish I could be there. Love you all." My mother held the bouquet like it was a consolation prize. She tried. The flowers are beautiful. I said nothing. I sat with my father in recovery. He was groggy, still half asleep from the anesthesia. He asked, "Did Rachel call?" I said, "She sent flowers." He nodded. He did not ask anything else. He knew the difference between flowers and a daughter. Ben asked me later, "Are you going to keep trying?" I stopped trying 3 years ago. I'm just answering when she calls now, which is almost never. That sounds sad. It's not sad. It's accurate. I spent a long time confusing accuracy with sadness. They're not the same thing. I did not tell Ben about the YouTube video again. He knew. The story was not new. What was new was that I was no longer waiting for the video to become true. I had accepted that the speech was real. In the moment, on that day, for those 7 minutes, Rachel meant it. And then the moment passed. And Rachel went back to being someone who cannot answer a phone. Both things were true. The speech was sincere. The silence was also sincere. I had stopped trying to reconcile them. I thought about the YouTube comments sometimes. Strangers weeping for a sisterhood they would never have. I used to be jealous of those strangers. At least they could believe in the speech. I knew better. Knowing better was not a gift. But it was the truth. The flowers sat on my kitchen counter for a week. I threw them out when they started to wilt. I did not take a picture. I did not post about them. I just put them in the trash and washed my hands. Rachel would never know. She would never ask. That was the difference between us. She performed. I lived. And living meant throwing out flowers from someone who could not be bothered to show up. That was not bitterness. That was just Tuesday. I was learning that accuracy was its own kind of peace.
Not warm.
Not comforting. Just true. And after 6 years of beautiful lies, true was enough. My father recovered. Life went back to its quiet rhythm. Rachel did not call. I did not expect her to. That was the difference. I had stopped expecting. I found the speech in my YouTube history one night. The one time I watched it years ago. The thumbnail was the same. Rachel's face, mid-laugh, bouquet in her hand. I considered watching it again. I let my cursor hover over the video for 90 seconds. Then I closed the laptop. I did not delete the history. I did not block Rachel. I just closed the laptop and made dinner. She meant it, I said to myself in the kitchen. And then she didn't. Both things are true. And neither of them requires me to wait anymore. I did not post about any of this. I did not write a caption. I did not record a response video. I did not comment on Rachel's posts. I stepped out of the performance entirely. Not with a bang. Not with a confrontation. Not with a tearful phone call. I just stopped being available for a relationship that only existed in speeches and comment sections. I was not angry.
I was not heartbroken.
I was just done being inspired by someone who could not answer a phone. I sat in my kitchen that night. The same kitchen where I used to wait for Rachel's calls. Phone on the counter. Volume turned up just in case. The phone was still on the counter. But I was not waiting anymore. I had learned that being someone's biggest inspiration does not require your presence. It requires your absence as a backdrop. The speech was never for me. It was for the audience. And the audience had been clapping for 6 years while I stood in the wings, waiting for a call that was never part of the script. I was not in the wings anymore. I was in my kitchen. And that was enough. That is not victory. That is the difference between being a character in someone else's speech and being the author of your own silence. I chose silence. Not because I have nothing to say. Because I have said everything. And no one who needed to hear it was listening. I'm over at where silence ends. What beautiful words have you been waiting for someone to mean?